everyone, I'm Melissa from Knitting the Stash, and this is episode 20 of the podcast series. We made it to 20, awesome. And I have so enjoyed all of your comments of late and all of the nice messages and Ravelry and Instagram and YouTube, so thank you so much for watching. It's really great to have you here, and it's nice to have a chance to talk to you about all things fiber and yarn related. You can find me just about everywhere as Knitting the Stash on Ravelry and Instagram, on YouTube obviously, and on the blog, which is knittingthestash.wordpress.com. I'm going to try to stay totally focused right now, but it's a little bit tricky because my son is literally running back and forth in front of the windows with a kite, just trying to get it off the ground. So if you see an occasional flicker in my distraction, it's because I'm watching him have a really awesome moment of summer outside. I'm coming to you from New York once again. This is the end of our summer adventure, and by the time you see this, I will no longer be in New York. I will be back in Illinois, ready for the semester to begin. I'm a professor there at the university, and my son has soccer in school, so we've got to get back. But we've had a good summer, and I told you a little bit about it on the last podcast. What I didn't mention in the last podcast is that we have also been building a second half bath upstairs in our little place in New York. So that took a couple weeks, and we're all thankful to have an extra bathroom. This is a very tiny house, but we often have a lot of guests out here, and having one bathroom, as you can imagine, was never quite enough. So we've got a new little half bath upstairs. That took quite a bit of construction work, but it's awesome now. And there's the kite flyer. So this is a live podcast, people. Not live, but it's real. It's real life here. And I've got a lot of people wandering around doing a lot of things. They've all agreed to be kind of quiet this morning, but we'll see how that actually works out. Okay, so what's on the podcast today? We've got a finished object, some socks. I've got a work in progress, which is the Brioche shawl I want to talk to you about, and let's see, I have a little bit of an update on the sheep investigation that's been going on in our neighborhood this summer. And this podcast is largely about making connections. So in the final segments, I want to talk to you about some really awesome indie yarny people and the Knit Together, which is going on, which we just started from the last podcast. So if you want some more information about the Knit Together project, just stay tuned toward the end of this one, and I will be talking about it and offering a giveaway to get more people involved, hopefully. So, okay, jumping in. My FO for today, ta-da, are my, and I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Anna, these are the Andeljus Socks by Anna of the Dunkelgrün Podcast. She's also an indie dyer and a designer, and I got in on a test knit of her latest pattern, which I was super excited about. And so let me show you, these are the socks. I'll talk about them in detail in just a moment, but she just released the pattern. So let me show you what that looks like. These are the socks. I think I'm getting not too much glare there. There we go. So these are her socks. Beautiful pattern, available on Ravelry now. And I think it's only a couple euros maybe to get the pattern. And I would just say the pattern is totally worth it. They're really cool socks. And I'm gonna, I guess I'll hold up both of them to show you. I wish I had my sock forms here, but I don't. So you're gonna have to live with me holding up the socks. So these are, let's see if the camera will do its thing. It's a little better. These are the socks, and I'll show you just one of them here. Terrific cable pattern in the leg and in the foot. And you can see how the cable pattern kind of continues down the foot. I really wish I had my sock forms. I'm kind of like pretend I have a foot on my arm. Let's do it that way. That's even better. Okay, so terrific cables that run all the way down the leg, which you can see here, and then up the top of the foot. Some really awesome color work in that you have this tiny little band of color at the very top, which you can't see because of my elbow. And this is improvised work, people. We're working here with with arms and feet. Okay, it runs all the way down, and then there's some cool color work again on the toe, and the best part is the heel, where you have not only the color work on the bottom of the heel, but you have this really cool mosaic effect with 3 different colors and a slip stitch pattern in the heel. So this sock, I love the way these colors turned out. You can see in her original pattern, she has a kind of lighter heathery main color, and then red for the toe and the heel, and she puts a little bit of blue in for her 3rd color in the mosaic part of the heel. And I really think that's kind of cool. I've seen a lot of different versions during this test knit with folks test knitting with all kinds of different fibers, different yarns, different colors, making matching socks, mismatchy socks, just really neat stuff. So you should check out not only her pattern, but the project pages to get some ideas about what colors you could use. I went with, the main color is a BFL sock. It's this beautiful purple that I picked up, I think when I was in the UK at one point. This is Eden Cottage Yarns, and it's from the UK, and it is, there we go, maybe. It's a beautiful kind of heathery purple. The colorway is called Salvia, and it's just 100% BFL sock. So it actually felt a little bit scrappy to me and a little bit rough and ropey when I first picked it up to work with it for the sock. But it knit up beautifully, incredibly squishy and soft, really lovely to like a good hand to the yarn, and the cables I think helped it kind of plump up a little bit. So these socks feel incredibly cush, really soft on the feet, and lovely. So BFL for the main color. And then, because I love my indie dyers, I have some LB art yarn in the one of the Walking Dead minis I used for one of my contrasts. And the thing about these socks is that for your contrast colors, you really don't need very much. So I have this much left over, and I could do another like 10 socks with just this much. So this is an LB Art Yarns Walking Dead minis colorway. And this is from Boga of Knitting in France. She sent me some yarn to test a while back, and I made some beautiful socks out of this yarn in the Gladys pattern by General Hogbuffer. And I had about, a little bit left over. So I used this for the toes and the heels and part of the contrast, and I still have more left over. If you're looking for really awesome sock yarn, totally go check out Boga's shop. We did a giveaway on the podcast a while back for some of her sock yarn, and folks went to her shop and just raved about the colors. And I can tell you that the yarn construction is incredible. I think it's a 4-ply. Let me see if I can pull it apart here. It is a 4-ply. This one is a 4-ply sock. It's merino and nylon. I love the way this sock yarn works up, and I would use this base like all the time. It's really awesome for socks. So that was the third that I used for those socks. And here we go. Hello. Okay, so that was a brief interruption. My husband came through, and my brother's here with his dog. It really is. It's like summertime on the farm. It's a little bit just people in and out all the time. So I'm trying my best to stay focused on you guys. Okay, so that's the Andeljus sock test knit from Anna of the Dunkelgrün Podcast, and I utterly love the way these came out. I've received a lot of compliments on the colors, and I think Anna did a fabulous job with this really neat mosaic heel. That alone is worth the pattern and trying to go ahead and make these socks. I would also say that because of the cool cable patterning that goes on in the leg and then down on the top of the foot, these went incredibly fast, and they felt really, it always felt like I was making progress, because it was like, oh, just one more little repeat, oh, just one more little repeat, and suddenly the leg is finished, and then you just kind of push through to the foot, and it's like, oh, one more little repeat, and it's really great. So totally fast knit. The other thing that was cool about this knit to me was that I had never done a round toe and a round heel before. Different kinds of gusset decreases for the round heel, and different kinds of decreases for the round toe. My husband actually likes this toe better. I usually do a square toe and a square heel on my socks. And you can see this is the round toe. But he has requested now that the next pair of socks that I knit him, I try the round toe and round heel for him. He tried these on, and amazingly our feet are about the same size. I have huge feet. And so he tried these on and he really liked the way the toe and the heel kind of sat on his foot. So next sock for him will be a round toe and a round heel. Thank you for that, Anna. And thank you for the lovely test knit. It's been really awesome to work with your pattern and to come away with these beautiful socks. So thank you so much. And I'll let you know if I know of other patterns coming out by Anna. I will gladly share them with you to get you over there so you can see what's going on with her. You should also check out her podcast, by the way. She has a terrific podcast, the Dunkelgrün Podcast. She's coming out of Switzerland. She's an indie dyer, and she has, I believe, a PhD in chemistry. So she talks a little bit about fiber and dye and how it works and why it works, and that's always really cool to me. So yeah, check out Dunkelgrün. Awesome. I have one work in progress for you today. Last time I talked to you, I was starting my brioche. I was taking a class with Nancy Marchand on Craftsy, and she calls it Explorations in Brioche, and I've been calling it Adventures in Brioche because my brioche knitting has taken a lot of time to really figure out, and I'm very thankful for that because I've been knitting for a while now and producing some pretty cool different kinds of garments, doing color work and cables and whatever else, slip stitches and things. But brioche has kind of reminded me of, it's like being a kid again or being a beginner again and really trying to learn a new technique, and I've really enjoyed that. But it's definitely been an adventure. And as I was trying to explain to my husband the other day, there's like watching someone do brioche, there's doing the brioche with them, and also trying to read a pattern, all the different new abbreviations and charts and notations and things. And then there's also just like looking at your work and trying to figure out what went wrong and how you do certain kinds of things. So the Nancy Marchand class was great. I took probably 2/3 of it before and did one of her 2-color samples before trying to go on to another brioche pattern. My goal has been to get to the RebelTwo Shawl by Lesley and Robinson of Knit Graffiti because it's a beautiful, beautiful pattern. I will pull it up real quick here for you. I've showed it on this podcast before. This is the RebelTwo Shawl. And it is a beautiful 2-color brioche shawl that I found one day in, I often just stroll through Ravelry and kind of look at like what's, I'll put in shawl or I'll put in cardigan or I'll just put in nothing and see what's going on. And I found it kind of by accident, and I really love Lesley's designs. They're just, I love that she calls herself Knit Graffiti because that's kind of what it reminds me of. Her patterns are really like, it's like art kind of blooming on the knitting. It's just got this beautiful sense that the brioche is allowing her to kind of really play around with texture and color and create this kind of like graffiti, like create these artistic designs that look like they're sitting on top of just kind of regular knitting. So I love her patterns, and when I saw RebelTwo, I was like, okay, I've got to make that. Except that I don't know anything about brioche. So after taking the class, I felt confident enough to pick up Lesley's pattern, and I'm happy to say that this is the result. This is the work in progress for the RebelTwo Shawl. And I think you can, yeah, there you go, it's popping now. So you can see where she's got these really great little, I don't know what they're, this shawl is inspired by Star Wars, and Princess Leia. So it's kind of like, it does remind me of little like spacecrafts or a little something that's extraterrestrial about it. Or a little something that's, I don't know, it's just funky. I just love it. I just love the little motifs she has going on. So this is one of them. And it's created by, doing a brioche 8 increase and then doing a couple different left and right leaning decreases to get you back to the single brioche there, right? And it is a 2-color. Brioche does produce a two-sided fabric. So on the opposite side you have this. And I think the camera wants to focus. There it goes. So you can see the result of like the brioche on the back produces these other kind of cool little stars and things. So that's the back side, that's the front side, right? And I guess well, I should say I encountered some interesting, here's why it's called Adventures in Brioche. When I started doing, picked up the brioche to do this particular shawl, all I had in my head was the Nancy Marchand version of things. And luckily for me, Lesley Ann Robinson credits Nancy Marchand, and Nancy has a great book out about brioche knitting. So Lesley credits her and basically uses a lot of the same kinds of stitches and kinds of instructions. So this pattern is actually perfect if you're new to brioche. And I wasn't sure about that and what that would actually mean, but it's true. If you've got just the basics down about brioche and like how it works kind of in your head, you can make this shawl. Really, trust me, you can. Not only is it, does it follow from the Nancy Marchand kind of school of brioche, but it also, Lesley Ann Robinson's done a really nice job in her pattern of creating both written instructions and charted instructions. So if you, and this is what I was mentioning in the beginning, like if you're learning from watching someone, learning kind of from watching your knitting, learning from looking at the pattern, whichever way you're learning, you can pick up Lesley's pattern and actually make it. The written instructions are very similar to the written instructions that Nancy Marchand gives in her class, and the charted instructions are using the same symbols that Nancy Marchand uses in her class. So it's almost like this is like a sister project to the class. If you were to take the class and then pick this up like I did, you can actually really do it and feel pretty confident about it, with a few exceptions. So let me tell you about the adventures I've had. And I will insert a couple photos here. This would have been probably twice as big had I not, in the beginning, reversed my colors. So I was feeling kind of confident when I picked up this pattern. I'm still feeling kind of confident. But I was like, I know what I'm doing. Looks to me like the blue is the main color and the white is the contrast color. No. So I started out the whole pattern, which I had to rip out like 5 different times. I would get through like row number 1 up to 5 and then be like, oh, that's wrong, and then rip it out and then start over, and that took forever. Then when I finally figured it out, and figured out how to like kind of translate between Nancy Marchand's instructions that I understood and Lesley Ann Robinson's pattern, I finally got through it and made it up to probably about here on the pattern, only to realize that the blue was not the main color and the white was not the contrast color. It was completely the opposite. So like I said, I'll put a few photos in here so you can see what this shawl looks like if you reverse the colors, if you reverse the dark and the light. Totally fine to do so if you wanted to. It just produces a very different effect. And the main difference is that if you don't use a kind of lighter color for your contrast, you won't be able to see these lovely little guys kind of bloom into being and then go back into like the single column of knit. It happens in such a dark color that you can't actually see the pattern kind of emerging. And then on the light side, you would see the opposite of these guys, which aren't quite as attractive as these lovely little motifs that Lesley Ann Robinson has going on. So it's been a little bit of an adventure. That's fine. I'm totally up for it. I have really felt very much like a vernacular kind of knitter in working on brioche. So what I mean by that is like I've learned it kind of like by feel, by kind of like common understanding, by kind of like what I've learned works. And so I'm sure that the way that I slip my stitches and bring my yarn forward is not quite the same as other people who are doing brioche. But as long as it's working, I'm okay with that. Like I can look ahead in her pattern and see, okay, this particular row is a bark row, like a brioche knit row. And I know how to manipulate the yarn to make that happen. Even if I watch like Nancy Marchand or some other video, they don't do it quite the same way, but we're getting the same effect. And I'm not sure if in the end, if I ended up with some more complicated brioche techniques, if it would be like what I'm doing isn't quite right. I'm not sure, because it's producing the right kind of stuff. But I feel a little bit like a kid who is taking a math test and can totally get the right answer, but is not exactly sure if the way they're doing their calculations is totally like kosher, you know? So that's been really interesting with this stitch, to be able to figure it out and produce a cool fabric, even if when I watch Nancy Marchand execute the stitches, she does them slightly differently. I at least know in my head, like, okay, if we're gonna do a brioche knit row, I need to have the yarn in this place before I can execute that stitch. So that's been really cool. And if you'll remember last time, I told you I totally messed up my decreases, because I didn't have I messed up my increases, because I didn't have, when you produce an increase, you produce 3 stitches, and you need to treat the middle one like a purl stitch. And I was having trouble, like, is the yarn in front or is it in back or whatever it is. Totally figured that out, and these decreases are all terrific and look just fine. But it was actually Lesley and Robinson's pattern that helped me figure out what exactly I needed to do. So I would say the two in conjunction with each other are really, really excellent. If you're interested in starting brioche and trying to figure out how to do it, go to Nancy Marchand's Craftsy class. You know, think about doing Lesley and Robinson's, one of her patterns with brioche, because she provides both the written instructions and the charted instructions, and the patterns are really written for someone who's doing some basic brioche stitches and wants to produce a really cool fabric. It's a great way to learn. I've learned a lot from it, and I would highly recommend it. So that's my work in progress. Hopefully next time you see it, the RebelTwo Shawl will be like massive. I do have a car ride home, so hopefully that'll happen there. And yeah, big shout out to Knit Graffiti and Lesley and Robinson. Awesome pattern. Love it. I can't wait to knit more of your stuff once I finish this one. So brioche forever. Okay, last couple things for today. The sheep investigation, the neighborhood sheep investigation, which is ongoing. I told you about it last time. There's an awesome little sheep farm just down the road from us. And they have a couple of Shetlands, lots of chickens, a couple goats, and then they have this 2 or 3 of these sheep that I have not been able to completely identify. Miriam of Miriam Knits, who I did a farm focus with maybe a few months ago, was sweet enough to write in, and she offered so much great advice about how to maybe identify these sheep. So Miriam, I'm taking you up on it as much as I can. I haven't seen the farmers out there and to ask them what their sheep breed actually is. But my son and I have a plan to go over and take a little walk and maybe get a little picture of this one type of sheep that I'm dying to figure out. But I paid a lot more attention to it last time we walked by, and it's a sheep that, there are two or three of them. They all have black faces. They all have horns that go like this, and they're all ewes, so horned ewes, black faces, black legs. And then their wool is, their fleece is, there's one that's white and one that's black, and the other one I think is black as well. Really kind of very fierce looking, friendly sheep. My guess is that there's some kind of like, the closest sheep I've been able to find is like the Norfolk horned sheep. So if you were to look up a Norfolk horned sheep, that's what they look like, kind of. Except that I'm not sure why these folks would have Norfolk horned sheep, because it's more of a rare breed. Who knows? Maybe they have Norfolk horned sheep. But if anyone has any ideas about a breed with black face, horned ewes, black legs, both black and white fleece, let me know. Miriam, if you're out there, there's some more info for you, and I'll try to get a picture. So yeah, the investigation is ongoing. And then the last segment for today is about shared connections and making connections. And I just wanted to share a few quick updates for some folks who did awesome blog spots of late. So you guys all know Old Crow Art Yarns, Megan Morrell is one of my favorite indie dyers. She has had some great new cool speckled yarns coming out, lots of different colorways. She's just kind of like churning out, like she's like a color machine over there. And I've been in her sock yarn club, which is the Crow's Nest, and I've been in her fiber freight box yarn club, and those deliveries have been super sweet, really cool. The last one was Jaws. and I don't have it with me, or I would show it to you. I'll show it to you in the next podcast. And they're just gorgeous. Just really, she just does some amazing stuff. So check out Old Crow Art Yarns. One of my other favorite blogs and Instagram feeds to follow is Helen of Crawcraft Beasties, and she has these adorable little knitted beasties that travel all over the world and do really fun, amazing things. They have adventures. They have adventures in Brioche, I'm sure. I'm sure they have had adventures in Brioche. And she has just redone her website. So it's got even more beastie goodness, really fun photos. She has a new shop up, so you can actually get a beastie for yourself. She has folks who have previously received beasties of one kind or another, and they take photos and send them to her. So it's this really nice community over there at Crawcraft Beasties, and I would highly recommend it. Helen is one of the Knit Together participants, and I have a little package going out to Helen. Hey, Helen! In the next week. And that leads me to my last little bit here, which is the Knit Together project, which is ongoing. We just started it with the last podcast a couple weeks ago, and I've sent out packages to, I think Helen will be the 6th person. And we have participants from Ireland, England, Switzerland, Argentina, all over the United States. It's promising to really be a cool project, and if you want to get involved, there is a link up on the website and the knittingthestash.wordpress.com. Right up at the top on the bar, it says Knit Together Project, and that has all the information. Very basically, it's just about community. It's about community building and recognizing all the connections that we have as a community. And I've asked a few of my internet buddies to knit an 8x8 inch blanket square, and I've sent them some DPNs to do so, and so they're going to knit that square, send it back to me, and send the needles on to someone else. So there are 2 ways to get involved. You can just receive the needles from one of these lovely podcaster blogger ladies, or you can just choose to join in, and I hope so many more of you will join in. I've had wonderful messages on Ravelry and YouTube and email of folks just wanting to get involved, and that is one of the best ways to get involved. If you want to make an 8x8 inch square for this community blanket, send me a PM on Ravelry, and I will send you information about where to send your square. It can be any gauge, any needles. It just has to be 8x8 inches, and we're hoping that the yarn itself has some kind of story behind it. Something that you love. It came from a place you love. It's an indie dyer you love. You dyed it yourself. You spun it yourself. Any kind of yarn that has a story should be what you use for your blanket square. And then the coolest part is that once I get all these blanket squares, I'm going to seam them up into 1, maybe 2, however many blankets I can make. And I'm going to do a random draw for anyone who submitted a square to the Knit Together project has a chance to win the finished blanket or blankets. How cool is that, right? You get a blanket, you submit a square, and you might win a blanket that was knit by all of these different people from all around the world with cool yarns that have stories. So that is the Knit Together project. I hope so many more of you will get involved. And as a way to encourage more involvement, I have 2 more sets of DPNs to give out to 2 more awesome subscribers. Or folks who leave comments on this YouTube video. So we are at, amazingly enough, we're over 1,000 subscribers. I really can't believe that. That's awesome. Thank you all so much. So I have 2 more sets of DPNs to give out to folks who leave a comment here. Tell me about the yarn you'd be thinking about using for your square, and I will do a random draw of 2 different folks who leave comments and send out 2 more pairs of DPNs to be making the rounds all around the world to see how many blanket squares we can produce. It could be pretty cool. So get involved, leave a comment, and you could win these DPNs that you could then send on to help the Knit Together project. Awesome. That's about it for today, and so thank you so much for tuning in. Go check out some of those awesome indie dyers and designers that I mentioned on the cast today. It's all about connections and community here. And I hope you all have some more fun adventures on your own, whether it's brioche related or not. And I will see you guys back in Illinois. Take care. Bye.